concrete's it's obviously the biggest product in the construction industry. We stripped a wall this morning. It was a big curved column actually, and it came out absolutely mint, and the clients there are just buzzing.
What is success to you?
I think it was a learn to love it experience.
And there's always pitfalls that you can fall in, but then you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
Number one thing if you're struggling is to catch up with people about it.
Ross Bannon, thank you for coming on.
All right, thanks for having us.
You've come recommended by quite a few, I would say, experienced builders, been reaching out to me saying, you got to get some of the old boys in. Don't think they were referring to you, but your name would come up after that.
Yeah.
So since then I've had like a little bit of a deep dive into some of your work, and it's fascinating what you've been able to do up until now. Did you ever think you'll be doing what you're doing now when you started off?
Not really. Obviously wouldn't have a clue what I'm doing now when I was an apprentice, but I started off in the commercial environment with a company called Bannon Construction, who were lucky enough I was lucky enough to get an apprenticeship with in the mid 80s. And from there, we worked with concrete and that sort of thing. And then when I finished that, I went overseas and, saw what they were doing over there. And then coming back, I just got into the normal procedure of what New Zealand builders do is, stick framing, tree huts, that sort of thing. And then, we did that for a while. And, unfortunately, guys of my age, we all built a plastered house every now and then. So I did one of those and learnt my lesson there. And then it decided straight after that, this is ridiculous. So that's when I dove into, investigating in concrete rather than imitation concrete houses, which I'd seen, because through the travels in Europe, it was the first travel after the apprenticeship, and then I went back to Europe again after 90s to 92. Then I saw more concrete construction then. So I sort of said, we've got to be able to do that here. So I sort of started doing a little bit, and then we did a house in Henderson in Auckland here where it was precast and had a little bit of in situ in it. And I enjoyed the precast side of it, but it was sort of all off-site. You weren't doing it. It was just, a stack of cards, and it was great. But I really enjoyed the in situ side of it. And there was just no one doing it whatsoever. It was just, do it and hopefully it worked sort of thing. So from that, the next house I did a little bit more in situ, and then in sort of 2008, 7 or 8, I got my first really big full in situ house to do, and that was just before, it was a bit of a downturn in the market then as well, so 2008. That's when we really got into it. So, but prior to that, actually, I'd spent a couple of years again travelling and researching it again, and then I got this house to do. So we were really able to sort of hone our skills on that job, and it went really, really well. And we had fantastic clients, and they worked with us, and we ended up with a really spectacular result, which everyone from the architects to the clients were stoked with, So it was just a matter of transitioning into that, and then learning and just developing the skills more and making it more and more economical, just working on every aspect of it. How do you do this better? And, right to how do you get the concrete supply to the formwork and all this sort of thing. And what I really learnt from that experience was there's massive amount of help in that industry, in the concrete industry. I still know bugger all really, but I know a lot of people who know a lot of things. So if I'm ever strapped on something or I don't know, I may bluff a client or another builder ask me, and I'll say I'll come back to you because I know someone either in Switzerland or in Hastings, or know someone who I can talk to, So I've got a really good base of people, and that's like the whole thing of all building is just, you're never going to know everything, but as long as you can pull in those bits of advice from around the place, you can formulate a bit of a plan and a methodology of how to proceed.
Yeah.
That's how we've worked it.
And so when you start, how do you get into the process of, concrete's not really the type of material that you can just sort of like play around with too much, you know what I mean? It's quite, you pour it, it sets, and then that's it. So how did the start? Did you how did you given the opportunity to improve on your skill set? Like, is it just about doing sort of smaller aspects and then learning and then going bigger and bigger over time, or?
Yeah. So we, like I said before, that main house, I basically took a couple of years, not fully off, but I didn't work, probably worked 30% of the time, and I was just running experiments, basically, just doing all sorts of things. From moulds to tweaking the concrete mix designs to everything. We had this great guy called Kevin McChesney from Stevenson's, who's retired now, but he was fantastic. He was a key driver in helping me develop the whole, how we were going to put the concrete in the mould, basically. And like I said, he's one of those guys who, one of my sort of support crew who I could call on, but he was outstanding. And we just did a lot of testing like that sort of thing. And then when we did put it into big moulds and things, we were still developing systems, and this mould would be better than that, but not that you could see it. It was just more of not the end result, but it was the application, the time, the trucks, the retarders you might put in the concrete, or we putting the chemicals in on site rather. It was just all developing the best processes that were easy and sort of solved a lot of issues on site and took stress out of on site. So it was just a lot of that sort of really thinking about it, how we're going to do it, and economically as well, because it's all very well to pour these things and make these things, but they've got to be economical, or else you're not going to build another one, because the clients are going to go, shit, this costs too much, So we've got it really down, that was bloody a long time ago, so we've got it down pat now to the extent that, we can build concrete mid-floor, concrete walled apartments and houses a hell of a lot cheaper than timber houses now. It's
really,
yeah, it's no question.
So what are the unit economics around that? Like, what's the cost these days if you wanted to build a full concrete house versus doing it the more traditional way now? What are the cost differences on that at the moment?
Well, for instance, we're doing a development ourselves, 7-unit development next year, and that'll all be concrete mid-floor walls, some exposed walls and that sort of thing. It's just when we, and you don't have to put, a lining on the formwork to create a visual effect on the concrete. You can plaster it or whatever. But, a lot of the walls inside, we'll even do the internal walls out of concrete.
Wow.
But we'll just skim them with a plaster and things like this where we don't need to. And the external ones or internal ones that are visual and we want to make a statement on, we'll line those with timber or ply, or we've got all sorts of things. We can line them with wallpaper or all sorts of things, and you get the embossed finish on them and things like that. And then just the mid-floors, tray deck, poured, and the engineers love you. There's structurally they're sound. You could put them on the market. What better house to have than a concrete house? And then when you stand a wall up and you create all the openings and things with concrete, there's no flashings. There's so much less you've got to do. You can get your scaffold down, so much quicker. All sorts of things like this. So, and then also when we insulate the walls, we encase insulation within the concrete as well. So you pour it, with the insulation in, so it's one pour. So and it's a solid, non-thermally broken wall. So if you put up a timber framed wall and you insulate it, when you think about it, if it's 10 meters long, you've got about a meter or a meter and a half of studs. So it's not insulated for a meter and a half.
Yeah.
So whereas if you do a concrete wall, the whole thing is insulated. So there's a lot of benefits to it, and it goes up really quick. With the formwork we use, and anyone can use. There's companies out there who, right throughout New Zealand, who will, and overseas, who will hire your formwork. But we own all our own formwork and things like this, and so we can put that up. But if anyone is wanting to do their own, you've got great formwork companies out there. I won't mention them. You can look them up. But they'll all come up with designs of how to place it, and what systems you use, tie rods, and how you tie it all together so you don't get a blowout or anything like that.
Yeah.
But like I say, in that concrete industry, everyone's really helpful. So. That they'll assist you as you go along.
A lot of the builders that I talk to, one of the biggest stressful days for them is when they're doing the concrete pour for the slab. It gets them really stressed out, and that's very simple. When you're doing your concrete pours for a big spiral staircase or some really big in situ wall, how you get stressed out, or you're a calm man?
No, well, people don't see me because I'm sleeping. But the night before is pretty stressful. But but the same, it all comes back to it. I really plan it out. How and I work out the loadings and all this sort of thing, where they are. When we're doing 2 helical staircases at the moment, which are both in construction, and but they're difficult to work out the loadings on those, because you can imagine the twisting, and one of them's freestanding, so it's like a spring, it wants to come down. So they're difficult. So I kind of got to use a bit of feel on those ones about how we will actually hold it together. But again, I've got great formwork for that. So I've brought in specific curve, formwork that we can curve and actually hold the barrel, all sorts of things. And then we've got a great designer who designs all my formwork, sort of the undersides of it and all this. So it all locks together like a big jigsaw puzzle underneath. And then we get all that computer cut. We use computers all the time now to cut our gear. So much easier. And then we lay them up and all this sort of thing at my factory. And we delivered one a couple of weeks ago down to Whangamata, actually. So the boys down there are putting all the Rio in now. So it is quite stressful when you actually go to pour it. But I try and take all that myself. I try and take it away from the other guys. The builders on sites, you can tell they're just shitting themselves. But and I'm sort of bluffing a little bit. But yeah, I'm a bit stressed. The first helical I ever did, I was very stressed. But I thought I had all my ducks in a row. But when you think about it, if that first one had gone wrong, I was probably $300,000 or $400,000 in the hole if it went wrong. So we had all sorts of safety features on there, to bribing the local. There was a roadworks locally, so I bribed the guys on the stop goes with beers the day before. And I said, look, if you see a concrete truck coming down the road, just let it, turn it to green, let them through. To putting, we had straps around the outside of the formwork, which I'd cut and I'd fiberglassed in certain places. So if the formwork moved, it broke the fiberglass. So it was all sorts of little tricks there. But it is stressful, and you've got to be careful. So, I assist a hell of a lot of builders all around the country and overseas. And my first thing to them is like, especially if they haven't done it before, it's like, I'll take the stress off you, like just let me figure out the best way we can build this together, because most of the time they'll build it and I'll just supervise them, and sometimes I'll send a guy to give them a hand or whatever, but most of the time it's just all over the internet, or I'll fly in, I'll drive there or wherever it is, and we'll have a look. But I'm just sort of the insurance policy for them, just to help them out, and just ease that pressure a little bit, like for instance this Whangamata helical, Jared hasn't done one before. I don't imagine he would have. He probably won't do another one, but because we've done them before, we can give him a little bit of a heads up in areas, and they're working really well. It's just, and they're always ringing you for advice and that sort of thing. But it's easy to answer a phone call and have a problem later.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like sometimes, especially those complicated ones, it's a bit of like an orchestra. You're directing the orchestra. What's happening? Is it what sort of I guess any advice for builders out there in terms of like how they should set up the team and everything, and when they doing a complicated pour?
Yeah. Well, the key thing is, you've got to. It always comes back to economics. So you've got to make sure, you when you say you're tackling a tricky walled area, get out of helicals for a while there, but they're out. But if we do like normal walls and things, so okay, you have everything set out. You listen to the advice, you get it all marked out and that sort of thing, and then you dedicate the team to building that wall. In the process of the whole build. So right, let's get these walls out of the way first, and then everyone's involved in that. So people aren't mucking around. So when you've got all the shuttering there, it's on hire every day. Just use it, get it done, get it out of the way. The worst ones I see is when the shuttering's sitting there and the guys are working over doing something else, a little deck area. It's like, this stuff's costing money. Let's get this done. So it's just a matter of working the best systems there, and then getting everyone involved in the process. So, okay, we're going to create this. It's because a lot of builders think, we're just doing concrete work. It's going to be rough, but it's not. You've got to really involve them and sort of say, look, when we strip this wall, it's going to be a bit of land art. So have some real pride in it. Like when you come in here, you don't have. And you're mucking around with the linings on the formwork or whatever, make sure your hands are clean. You're not dragging rust or that sort of thing, and you're not dragging a Red Bull or something in here and resting it here, which will stain the concrete and things like that. So everyone's got to be on board with that sort of thing, right down to when you're ordering the concrete. You're talking to the batching plant guys and the pumper, going, hey, look, we're pouring this wall. It's taken us 3 or 4 weeks to build. We really want to make it good. Can we book concrete for this day? And they go, yeah, okay, but you haven't got another 120 cube going to another job that morning, and we're after them, have you? No. It's just sort of making sure that everyone's on board and they understand the importance of the pour and the end result that they all want. Because concrete's it's obviously the biggest product in the construction industry. So everyone wants to have it working really well on a site, and to have the end result and relieved, and the clients turn up and or it might be the builder's house, and you're just like, shit, yeah, we did that. It really is a big moment when we do that. Like we stripped a wall this morning, and it was a big curved column actually, and it came out absolutely mint, and the clients there are just buzzing, So it's always a great feeling when that happens, But everyone's got to be on board. Yeah.
Are you a builder, or are you an engineer, or are you like an artist?
No, definitely a builder. I've been building. I started with my uncle when I was about 11, and in the holidays, and he taught me to back a trailer when I was about 13, and then I worked with him for a couple of years and did my apprenticeship. So, yeah, I'm a little bit of an engineer with no degree. Not recently, but last 7 or 8 years. But before that, I was going to all sorts of conferences, and I'd sit in on these engineering lectures, and 90% of it would go over my head, not really understanding. But I was able to figure out, where I could ask questions and where I could, push what I was doing. So it's been really helpful, and I spend a lot of time in lectures and things like that and speaking. Yeah.
You seem like a guy that's just constantly learning and absorbing new information, and more than happy to reach out, ask for help. No, you don't seem like you have an ego problem or anything like that, like the opposite of anything. Happy to kind of take other people's input and absorb. How important has that been over your career, just learning from people and absorbing?
Oh, hugely. Like I said, you can never know everything, and, I remember the first house I built after my apprenticeship. When I think back now, it's like, Jesus.
Still standing?
Yeah, it's still standing, but, you're thinking, you thought you knew it all then, and like I'm still learning. We poured a week ago today, and I learnt something then, It's just, you're always doing that, but you've got to value everyone's advice. Like I've had great guys working for me over the years, and just they all come up with great ideas. Some of them are crap ideas as well, but I've come up with crap ideas too. So it's all a matter of everyone pooling their ideas and resources, and it works well. And just keeping calm as much as possible, and then and asking for advice when you need it. Like, you know, I get called all the time by builders all around the country, and, you know, I'm more than happy to give advice because, you know, and share all what I know. I don't care what I say, what I tell. You know, people go, oh, you shouldn't give away the R&D and that, but I can never build all of the homes, you know, in concrete. So the more homes that get built in concrete, the more I'm going to build, you know. And now my son Troy has taken it over because I'm trying to retire, but it's not really working at the moment. So, you know, they'll be busy forever, you know, but the whole thing is just pulling that whole information base and support up, you know, and letting everybody know that it's out there is really key. And it's like, say, everyone in the construction, concrete industry that I've been involved with are all real helpful, you know. And like I wrote the building weathertight code for concrete along with a few other people several years ago now, and there's a good support structure of people there as well. And the New Zealand Concrete Society, that's who wrote that with us, you know, they're always out there for advice as well, and they're a really good source of information for everybody. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. How do you find the younger, well, young can be, you know, 45-year-olds or like the 25-year-olds coming through their, you know, building career? A lot of guys are sort of try to fast track things and, like, you know, maybe even you could argue take shortcuts to kind of grow a bit faster. What are your thoughts on that, you know, the younger guys coming through in terms of their level of patience versus wanting to grow fast and that sort of thing?
So I've helped quite a few builders recently with just that, their businesses where they've, you know, it seems to be a thing so much now, but last 10 years or so where, you know, if you went to the pub and you had 60 guys and 5 of them turned up in brand new Rangers or whatever, it was you know, you were the man. But, you know, I've got a few friends like that, and, you know, I guarantee I ain't more than them with half as many guys. And because, you know, I'm always a great believer in sort of consolidating everything and having a good overlook over what you were doing. So I never ran more than 2 big homes at a time, and I tried to run one. You know, they always sort of overlap, starting and finishing. And that kept my stress levels down and kept the quality up. You know, not saying that people who run a lot of homes that don't have good quality, but they've got to have good management, you know. And my concern always was, well, you know, a lot of these big homes we've done, you know, most of it's in your head, you know, it's not in a set of drawings on the desk, you know. So there's a lot of things that we're actually running sort of conjointly with a lot of other things, you know. So it's, yeah, I've always been a great believer in a sort of a more compact type construction company. But, you know, there's big companies out there doing well, but I've always been like that, and that's allowed me to keep the sort of quality of the concrete that we do, you know, the forms we do and things like that. And then also sort of too diverse, you know, last 10 years or so into this consulting side where we just help a lot of builders and grow the industry in general, you know. And then sort of the young builders coming through, like we've had a great turnover of staff, like everyone in the construction industry, people come and go. And obviously it's some really, really, really good people working with us, like I've said. But, you know, yeah, I sort of sound like an old bugger, but you know, when you do get some younger guys in, you know, take a little bit of retraining sometimes when mums drop them off to soccer practice every day and they sort of realise that they've actually got to fend for themselves. It's sometimes a little bit of a culture shock for them, but you know, it's learning process. You know, what you do in your industry is going to be unique, or, you know, whatever you do. So you've really got to put the effort in. You know, if you don't put the effort in, you'll be doing something normal. You know, whereas my theory has always been, you know, if it's easy, everyone will do it. You know, so why do that? You know, may as well do something spectacular. You know, so and then, you know, then you've got a bespoke sort of talent to have. You know, so, you know, I've been through, you know, a bit older than you guys. So I've been through, I think, 3 of these we're going through a massive downturn now, right? So we've been through 3 of these. You know, it'll turn around soon, but it's just a matter of going through that through this, and consolidating a little bit here, not going out and spending a fortune on, jet skis and things like that, which I've never done. I think I was 50 before I owned anything other than a ute. So
yeah. I have so many follow-ups on that. But with the young guys coming through, and I'm saying, the people have been in the game maybe under 20 years, under 10 years. What are your sort of advice on, obviously it's good to consolidate right now. A lot of guys sort of wonder, should they buy some of their own gear, some of their own equipment, invest in that? It's also I don't know what it's like right now, but over the last 5 years, it's been fairly easy to go to the bank and get a loan to buy a digger or whatever. What are your thoughts on purchasing your own equipment versus just hiring it as you need it?
So we never hire gear ourselves, but not everyone's in that situation. I'm older; things are easier to buy. We've got factories and things. Which is, I understand it's bloody difficult to buy that stuff now. But there's a couple of builders that have helped. Like I've said, I've actually done the numbers for them. I've sort of said, right, if you buy this formwork or this crane or this digger, here's what your numbers from your depreciation to your renting back and all this sort of thing. They can see in 2 years they're going to own it, and it's so worth it if you can do it. It's unbelievable because you've got the gear. If you've got a digger on there, you can have that sitting on site and you have an hour meter on it and you say to the client, right, we're charging back at this hourly rate. And they love it. They think this guy's got all the gear. He's got a bit of backing behind him and he knows what he's doing and he's hiring this gear. It means we don't have to get a truck to deliver it. And take it away and then come back and back. It's just sitting there ready to go. Same with the formwork where we have it sitting on site versus when we hire it, obviously you've got to use it and it's hired from day one when it arrives on site, whereas all our gear sits there. When we use it, we hire it, that sort of thing. So I highly advise to hire, not to hire things, but to buy it, down to the submersible pumps and all that sort of thing. But it's everyone's got their own circumstance. Like where do you put this gear? So if you're a builder who lives in a sort of area, in the central city, it's impossible. Unless you've got a mate with a farm and a container you can use and that sort of thing. So it comes down to people's situations, but hireage is just a dead cost. And I did a big job for a guy who owned a big hire firm, and that's where I understood it's like, they earn a lot of money, So if you can get out of that and hire companies, if you want to get into a company, they're one of the best companies because the depreciation is massive, and you earn a lot back, not just from hire, but it's all the tax side of it and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, all the unseen things you don't think about, And I guess if you have networks and you own a digger, you can essentially hire that out to your mate. That's also a builder that might want to rent it from you as well, right? So there's that opportunity as well if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking about gear, you also have another business that you've kicked off, I don't know how long ago, the cranes business. Why get into the crane business?
Well, when I was in Europe, after my apprenticeship and that, you see these self-erecting cranes everywhere on every building site in Europe, through Italy and Switzerland, all around there. So when I came back, no one had them here, and I was always like, I'd love one of those just because I love cranes. Always have. And then so slowly progressed and got, bigger and bigger homes. I'm like, God, this house would have been so good for one of these cranes. And then in 2011, I about to start this big house in Auckland, and I thought, this has got to work for this house, because the land space outside the house was small and this sort of thing, so we couldn't have big mobile. So I did all my investigations on a self-erector, and I went to the client. I said, look, I can get this crane for this price, and we can build your house, and we can save 4 to 6 months. I'm sure of it. So he's like, oh, get it. I said, well, I can't really afford it. And I said, but if I hire it back to you at this rate per year, I can get it. I can order it tonight, and then get it underway. And so that I didn't expect it, but that night he put in the first year's hireage into my account, and then he rang me and said, order it, so we ordered it. It was a fantastic client. So that got me started. So we and that was the first self-erecting, easily used self-erector in New Zealand. There was a couple of others, but they were really complicated. And so it was the first one of that type. So I brought that in and we used it, and it was just night and day. I was thinking, when I bring it in, will the other crane companies, blacklist me or something because I'm not using their mobiles? It was completely the opposite. Everyone, like the concrete industry, they were loving it. They thought it was fantastic. So massive amounts of help with that, and I learned a hell of a lot. But then finishing that job there, I then had friends going, shit, I wouldn't mind one of these. So then I did more investigations, and I actually was building my own house. So I bought another little one for that one, which I could use. So I built my own house using 400 kilogram shutters all by myself, the first stage of it, using that. And then I went back to Europe and did some more investigation and thought, well, I'll bring in my own cranes. So, we're sitting here, I don't know, what's this, 15, 16 years later? Oh, no, not that long, maybe 10 years later, sorry. And, 35 cranes later, we bring them in and from all sizes, and we sell them up and down the country. We've got them from Queenstown to Rafferty in the Bay of Islands, and all different sizes. And last year we won the top crane award in New Zealand. So
cool.
It was for a big lift we did. But but they on site they're a massive saving, But it's can be anywhere from a couple of hundred to 400 grand for a crane. So they're a big outlay. But again, if you don't own that crane outright within 2 to 3 years, you've done something wrong, So after that, you've got 2 to 4 grand a week coming in for hireage, into your pocket, and they're bugger all maintenance on them, But the savings of building a house it's right from getting the scaffold down early to all the product being delivered to anywhere you've got to go, around the site, and the sites are getting smaller and taller and less ground. So, and they take up virtually 16 to 20 square meters of space. So, it's understandable why people don't all have them because they're an outlay, but if you can afford them, there's no question they're a massive massive help on site. Like I said, from delivering steel to piles to all sorts of things, and they help everyone around. It's like you're not lifting everything, so you're able to keep older guys on site like me, and we're not having to cart everything around, to the glass, and then we get all the suppliers, from the glazers to the roofing guys to the waterproofers. They all know to turn up with things on pallets or whatever, and they just go straight up. And the structural guys are happy because they know they can get everything in where they can go, so you can keep structural elements bigger, so you don't have to break them down.
And how far do they reach?
We've got cranes from 21 metre reach to 41 metre reach. So like I say, there's 9 different models. So we use Cataneo, Italian brand that we've been using for a long time. We go backwards and forwards to Italy to see them. I'm off up there in a couple of weeks again. So, but fantastic family-owned business, and they're really supportive, and they love it that we've got their cranes on the other side of the world. So they're really supportive, and we do everything. When we supply these cranes, we deliver them to you. And we sort of say, here's how it'll fit on the site. This is the best crane for you. This is how you operate them. We'll get you licensed and that sort of thing. We deliver the crane. It's all fully certed and ready to go. You don't have to do anything. We arrive with the pads for the crane to the lifting gear and everything. So it's all one-stop shop.
And how easy are they to operate? Is it
really easy? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like I said, initially when I was looking at them, they were complicated. There were towers that go up and down with lots of cables and that sort of thing. And that's not what I wanted. I was like, I just want something simple that, I can drive, and then we can get anyone on site to drive it if we want to. So the cranes we bring in, some of them could lower down within 15 minutes and be on their wheels and ready to move to another part of the site. Like the little crane I use for my own house, we moved that 3 times for my build. I just staged the build, and it takes about an hour to move it, and then you carry on.
And so so there's definitely unit economics around cost savings, having less people on site, moving things around. And I guess there's also sites that are quite, more difficult accessibility, where those cranes come in really handy, if you have to lift something over another house or something like that.
Yeah, well, after this interview, I'm off to a site in Mairangi Bay here. Exactly that. They had a site where it was down a hill. So, we gave them bins and everything, so the builders all put their tools in the bin every morning and just went straight down there. But, they've had it there for a couple of years, and I'm going there this afternoon to lower it down because I'm helping them move it to another site. So, it's everything. It's just across the board you use. We delivered one to a Coromandel site 3 weeks ago, and they're calling me up going, they thought, we may use it. They're using it every day, They just, you change your systems how you do it. You have bins all around the site, and you just lift those bins into the main bin and all sorts of things,
And who, what's the name of your company that does that?
It's all under Bannon Concrete actually, but they're a Catania crane from Italy, just out of Milan.
Right.
So
if people want one, they can just reach out to you and.
Yeah, for sure. We're always helpful. We're always keen to.
And can people just hire it as well from you, or buy it?
I haven't got into the hire side of it. I've been asked that a few times, but it's I've only got so many hours in the day, and it's kind of I'm pretty busy with my concrete, and I love the cranes. I spend a lot of time with those, but I don't really want to get into that side of it and then supplying drivers and all this sort of thing. It's easier just to set them up, one-stop shop. There you go, there's crane, and this is how you drive it. This is all licenses and that sort of thing. And then we always, not that we deliver and forget about them. I mean, like today, we're going and taking this crane down. We're always running around and helping people out and things like that. But it's just something I need to. Trying to retire, I don't need to start another hire company.
Talking about retiring, I was messaging your son Troy back and forth. We were messaging each other a little bit, and that was actually one of his questions. I was like, "What should I ask your dad?" And he said, "Ask him when is he retiring." So I'm asking you, when are you retiring?
Well, it was about 8 months ago, but no. Look, I really want to retire, but I really love the consulting side and the crane side. So I never want to stop that. But I need to stop on site because, I've just had rotator cuff surgery and I'm just feeling older and tired, and I don't need to be there. Like Troy, have you spoken to? He is 20 years ahead of me where I was his age, miles ahead of me. So, I'm leaving him to do pours himself now. I'll just oversee it and that sort of thing. A bit of confidence, but that's it. I won't do anything more. But I definitely am getting out of that. But I've got a couple of jobs that have just continued on that we're just finishing off, really, like these helicals and a couple of things for CMP we're doing now for Atlas head office. So once we've done that, then I'll sort of move away a lot more. That's for sure. Yeah.
I asked a couple of people. I asked people on the internet for a couple of questions, and we had a couple come in. You may be able to answer. How difficult is it to create the live timber look on cast concrete walls? Willis G asked.
It's not hard. So if you stand up the two sides of the shuttering. One's here where you're going to set the concrete, and you'll put the other 1 metre or 2 away, and you line the boards so on either side, and then you do reinforcing insulation if you need to and all that sort of behaviour. So it does create a lot, versus putting the shutters up, and then pouring straight. It's easy, right? But when you're lining the shutters, that's what takes the time. But it's very simple, and then attaching those boards to the formwork is just pins and this sort of thing. You don't screw them on. You're just holding them there, because whenever you're setting up these forms, you always want to have a cover over them. So you're covering the area with a tarpaulin or something like this to keep the wind and sun off it. And the rain's not so much of a problem, but the wind dries out the boards. So say we're looking at rough sawn boards, for instance. There's a lot of other things you can do as well, but if we stay with rough sawn boards. So, I've gone to sites where people have said, here, we're ready to go, and we've had this rough sawn and we've dried it all out and it's been filleted and that. It's like, great, throw that away. Let's go down to placemakers, because we need really wet stuff, because it's got to be wet on the walls. Because if you put concrete, which is a liquid, into a formwork and you've got these kiln-dried timbers, no matter how much form release you put on it, sometimes it'll be okay, but it depends on the moisture content. But if it's really dry, it actually sucks the juice out of the concrete, and you'll get a dusting on the surface of the end result concrete, or like a sunburning peeling look. So there's a lot of little tricks around, how you get the best results. Right down to batching the concrete, to placing the concrete, and all of this sort of thing, within the form. So it's really hard to sort of say exactly how you do it, but, because there's so many variables. But again, reach out and talk to people who've done it before. And actually, I've started, one day I'll actually finish it. I've sort of got a whole notebook full of ideas, and we're going to do not a book, because I'm not that clever, but it'll just be like a folder thing, with a ring binder, like basics, of what it is. I'll get that out. I'll definitely get onto that actually soon. Yeah. And just give it sort of a step process, using what you're using to, if you're doing a difficult mould, don't use water-based release agent, because it'll dry out. Use a solvent-based to, keeping things off the ground. So if you're using a ply, so the moisture doesn't suck up through the ply. There's just so many things to think about. But in reality, once someone's actually done one or two, they kind of get the idea, and you've just got to run through the process and not skip anything, Yeah. And then they'll be right. Like we've helped, I don't know, hundreds of builders, and most of them are really proficient in building now, and some of them are calling me now just for tweaking advice. I invented this tool along with this very clever man, Graham Collinson, that measures the spread of concrete, the viscosity. So we want like self-compacting concrete. So the standard test was invented in the 1920s, where you do a spread test on a board and you lift a cone. And it's when we were starting to use that a long time ago, it was just so inconsistent. We'd get testers from the different plants come along, and some of them would lift it too quick, and some of them have water on the board, and you'd get 10, 20 different results from the same truck, I'm sure. So there's got to be a better way of doing this. So this guy, Graham, I sort of said to them, what's the problem? And he went away, and he came back a couple of weeks later, and he says, mince pies. So when you make a mince pie, you put in this cone into the big vat of mince. Right. And it sinks in, and you got your right amount of mince. So we thought, well, we'll adapt that. So we've adapted that, and we've got this cone that we measure the viscosity of concrete now, and we sell those a lot to Australia, and I'm taking one to Wholesome in Europe when I'm in a couple of weeks to see if I can make my millions on that.
A bit of Kiwi ingenuity, I love it. Yeah. Okay, another quick question from Chapman 7714, the internet. What's the best mix for off-form concrete walls?
High viscosity concrete. There's no question about that. It depends on the access you have for the for placing the concrete in to the vibration method. Sometimes we're going around corners and under things that you can't see. So we'll have vibrators attached to the outside of the formwork, and in areas where we can plunge the concrete. But the more fluid you can make the concrete, the better result you'll get. But there's a lot of variables with that as well. So when you're placing it, if it's too fluid, you'll get you'll get a lot of problems with your segregation and things like this with stones, and I've come across jobs where they've just had exactly that. They've poured in really wet concrete, and then they come to the top and they've just got water at the top, so I've had to knock it down and we start again for them. More fluid concrete. So around sort of, if it's easily accessible and you can get a vibrator in there, you get it sort of around 550 to 600 millimeter spread. If you can't, then you'll bring it up to 650 to 700. But trouble is when you get up to that range, it's knife edge stuff. So if you jump over the 750 or whatever, it turns to water and all the stones fall to the bottom, and you can be left with a massive problem. So go as high as you can to start with, and then just try and figure out what you can do. And like I say, the batching plants who will deliver it, you'll educate them on what you're doing, and they can sometimes send out a technician and they can keep an eye on it. It's tricky, but just try and creep up that range, and you'll see, you'll do a 6 metre long wall, so that may be 300 high and say 300 wide or something. And if you're putting the concrete in the middle of that wall and you've got about a 600 to 650 spread, you'll be, if you're pumping it in there, you should be within 100 to 150 mil on either side, and you won't have to vibrate it. The problem comes is, like I say, any concrete truck can turn up on site, and it can vary within the truck and during the placement, or you can have a delay with another truck coming, or that can arrive early and it's sitting there. There's so many things that can go wrong. So that's why, like saying, we have vibrators set up. So even if we're pouring with 700 spread concrete, we have vibrators set up, because all I do during a pour is I do nothing really. All I'm doing is watching. So I'll be on the wall with a really high-powered flashlight and looking in the mould. And then if I can see it, if I place the concrete truck and pump properly, I'm watching the concrete coming out of the back of the truck into the pump, because you've got a good 3 or 4 minutes before that arrives. It can be longer before it arrives into the mould. So I can tell the viscosity of it coming out of the back of the truck just by looking at it. But that's learned. So that's where my tool comes in handy, because we just drop it in. It takes 30 seconds. But we're watching that. So the key thing is, when these guys are placing it, is to get as high as you can, but have everything organised so you're not running around with a hammer and trying to tap everything, and you're not doing work. You're just watching, and you're controlling, and you're telling this guy, right, we need that vibrator on for five seconds, and then we'll move over to this one, give this one a tweak, and that sort of thing. And everyone's got their tasks, so everyone understands their roles, and it seems to run smooth. But if this guy, if he places that sort of fluidity of concrete in there, you should be right. But there's products that you put in it to make it fluid. They're called water-reducing additives, right? So if he's unsure, start at sort of 550 or whatever, and then you can put in these water-reducing additives in, just to bring it up a little bit at a time, and then figure it out. But just be careful with those additives. Like, we put in half a litre of this, it's equivalent to about 40 litres of water. So
right,
you put in a little bit at a time until you get the hang of it, And if you're doing a wall and you're unsure about that, and you're thinking, oh shit, we might take a while to do it, put some retarder in the concrete. Put a 2-hour retarder in. It gives you more life and won't do anything to the concrete. It just gives you more time, more time to play with when you're doing your first experiments and things like that.
Yeah. Little birdie told me you have your own special Ross Bannon mix. Is that true?
The concrete companies name it the Bannon mix, but it's pretty basic, It sounds good, but we work with them, and it'll come down to the MPA required by the engineers and the aggregates required and things like this. But again, so I deal with all the different batching agents around New Zealand and overseas, and the ones in New Zealand, I never say what exactly I want, because then I can't get accused of copying from this company to that company. I give them the basics, like I want this fluidity, I want to use this stone, I want to get this MPA and I want to achieve this after this many days. And they'll come up with it, and they'll send me the data sheet and that sort of thing of what it is. But like I say, not with everything, because then I don't get accused of cross-contaminating plants. And it's worked really well. I've got good rapport with all of them, I think. So they're pretty good. But yeah, most of the times if you say you want the Bannon mix, they call that. But I always get a call, so...
Yeah, that's good. What are some of the biggest mistakes you've made over the years in terms of running your business and, just being in the industry and business-wise?
Well, early on, like everyone, I left school and went overseas and came back and thought I could run my own company really well. So, we had an accounting side of it. We had an accountant do all that, and, it worked all right, but the key things with running a successful business, I think, is having a great sort of office side of it, and keeping overheads really low as you can. From when she could, my wife took over all that side of it, the running of the management of the accounts and things like that. And without that, we'd be nowhere. Like I'm hopeless. I haven't paid a cent out of my business in 30 years. So she's done it all. I wouldn't even know how to make a bank transfer. So that's really key to have that good support there, or great support there. And if you don't have that, have a good accountant or accounts person that will run that side of it. Leave you to doing what you do best. Like, if I'd been doing that, there's no way I could have spent the time invested in my research and development of from the cranes to the concrete. There's not a hope. And then just having that support there, and you can rely on them to get it done. They've got your interests at heart, to develop it properly and to bring things forward, and to pull you back a little bit when you want to buy this and buy that, which was a bit of a pain in the ass at the time, but most of the investments we've done have been pretty good, so I've been able to go back, told you so sort of stuff, like the cranes. Let's go to Italy and let's have a look at this. And she's like, oh, would you go to Italy for a trip, and then she's realised, oh shit, we can go back every 2 years now, so it's great. But you're having that there, and then involving everyone. Like I've got 3 kids, and Troy, as is right into it now, and my daughter Jasmine, she's did her studies in Victoria and in Wellington in building management and that sort of thing, and she worked with us for a couple of years, and it's incredible what they know, what they come out of there, from everything, from the RF, just running the show on the computers, sort of programs and this sort of thing, and giving that all to the clients, so the clients see it all so professionally done.
Yeah.
It's really amazing, and she's done an incredible job, and she worked for us for a couple of years after her studies, and then now she's working for another good friend of mine. While we're just concentrating on this little consulting jobs. We haven't got a big build at the moment because I'm trying to retire. So, and then my youngest son, Blake, he's down here doing engineering. So they're all involved in it, and having that, when they were young and we're building that house that you're talking about in Grand Designs, they're all helping there during that build. So they're all understanding the end result and that sort of thing. But it's funny, recently, Troy was saying, he was saying that I used to push them a bit, and they'd have to help on the weekends, and I didn't even know this, but they're giving my wife grief about, why do they have to help when their mates are doing this? But now they understand, they've got a great product that they can have in the end. But yeah, just having that support and just thinking about how you're going to grow your company, and don't try and grow it overnight and get too big. Just keep insular and think about, give yourself goals or what you're trying to achieve. Like, I didn't go off into concrete and then, it's too hard, so I went off into steel stud or something. I really wanted to do this because I've seen it work and seen the Europeans do it, and if they can do it, they've been doing it for hundreds of years. Why are we building imitation ones? Why don't we build real ones? And I'm sure we can build them as cheap, well, not as cheap, but as cost efficient. So it's just having a bit of a goal there, but and trying to do that. But I was heavily involved in a sport when I was younger, and it's I was sort of really concentrated on goals for that, and I sort of pulled that over into my business side of life, because I wanted to be slightly different to what we're doing and make it all work well and not have to work till my end days,
Yeah. And now that you're looking with one eye slightly towards retirement, what is success to you now?
Success to me now is just, I'm really happy now. I've got kids who are doing really, really well, and being able to do what you want to do, and to be able to take off and like we're off, like say, to Europe for 7 weeks, and just be able to do that sort of thing without too much of a worry, and to have Troy and that to be able to just carry on with these jobs while I'm away, and full confidence that they'll be just as good as, if not better than, what I'd do if I was here, So just happy to have a little bit of a work-life balance, but not too much. A lot of people use that now a little bit too much, and they sort of, they'd use it as an excuse not to work, which kind of, I've had a couple of young fellas work for me like that, and like never work a Saturday in their life, but how come I'm in there on Saturday, and I'm trying to retire, So it's just a matter of having the ability to do what you want to do without overextending anything, and then you're just having a bit of fun, because at the end of the day, these last couple of builds I've done, I've said to both the architects, it's like, we sort of picked them because, I've realised that I had 2 or 3 builds left in me to do, so I wanted to do ones that I enjoyed, and I wanted to do, I didn't want to have to do it just because I had to pay the bills,
Yeah, for sure. And what piece of advice would you give to younger dads out there that are like they want to run their business, they have big goals, and just sort of navigating between the business and household, like any sort of advice for the young dads out there now that you sort of have a bit more experience?
Well, it could be wives as well, Figured about the girls in the industry or ladies.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, I was going to get to them as well, but both.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, I can't really say too much. That it's just getting the, what you want to do, really. How you want to do it, and get the right people around you. Enjoy the people you work with. Enjoy going to work. In the early days, pre-kids for me, I hated going to work because I was under so much stress, it's the early days of what I was doing, and I was learning, and I was going to be having if it went bad, it was going to go really bad for me, and I didn't sleep, I had some really sleepless nights, for a long time. So enjoy going to work and be enthused about what you're doing, and having the people there that you're working with that you enjoy working with. Get deadwood is pain in the ass. Working with them. So if you've got some grumpy old buggers like me on site, constantly causing you grief, move on. But I don't know what to say. It's just have a bit of fun. We're here for a finite time, and build what sort of suits you and what you're best at,
Yeah, 100%. Enjoy the journey. I should just mention we are the podcast now has a sponsor. If you didn't know, just recently, actually, Ross, we partnered up with Abodo. So I know that's like the opposite side of concrete, but I'm sure you have some timber in some of your projects that you work on. Even though you don't probably touch that too much. But Abodo has, so they cover all our production costs for us, and just wanted to really get involved to kind of reach more builders and be able to put more back into into builders, because builders don't really get a lot of shine. You know, they don't normally. The architects and some others get a bit more shine out there. So, just wanted to give a shout out to Abodo and make sure that if builders want to check out their material, or their timber products, they can go check out their website, abodo.co.nz or abodo.com.au, and I know .uk if they're in the UK as well. We've pretty much come to the end. I've got a few rapid fire questions I'll throw at you if you wouldn't mind, just a few quick questions.
All right.
So how big is your team?
We had, I think I maxed out at about 15 guys, and now we're down to about 4 of us just while I'm retiring.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure Troy will build it right back up again next year, but we'll just ride this wave at the moment, this downturn, and we'll just concentrate on our bespoke stuff for a little while.
Cool. How many projects did you complete last year?
1.
Cool. Yeah, you work on big projects. Feel free to pass, but what's your turnover range? Under 1, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20?
It's 10 to 20.
Cool. What's the lowest gross profit margin that building companies should be aiming for, in your opinion?
I don't know. I have to ask my wife that one. Like I said,
Phone a friend.
I got no idea what happens there. But no, look, you've just got to be comfortable. You've got to earn money. Like, don't go in and undercut yourself. You know, back yourself. Like, you're valuable. You know, if you think you're worth it, make sure the client understands that too. You know, never rip a client off. Obviously, I was taught a valuable lesson a long time ago. It's like you'll only be caught once. You know. So never do that, and then just back yourself and earn what you think you should earn. And if you earning too much, let them know. I've done that too. Where I've had a margin on a project, and the client spent a fortune on several things, and I said, look, I'm taking this, and this out because it's ridiculous if I earn that much out of there, and consequently those clients come back. It's all goodwill.
Yeah, never heard of that one, but that's good. Project management software or spreadsheets?
Spreadsheets, I'm old school, for sure.
Are you an EV or petrol head?
Not batteries, no.
Classic rock or metal head?
Not metalhead, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, so.
What sort of music are you into?
Bit of Queen.
Bit of Queen?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, everyone loves Queen.
Yeah.
Are you a jock or a hippie?
Not a hippie.
Yeah. Are you too mean or too nice to your staff?
Depends on the situation, but I think I'm reasonably okay. I bite my tongue a lot of the time.
Okay, cool. Are you an extrovert or introvert?
Well, I'm here, so
extrovert.
It depends. I really enjoy time to myself. That's for sure. But I enjoy helping other people and things like that. So extrovert probably more. Yeah.
Cool. Golf or fishing?
Golf. My mum's a golf pro.
Ooh, okay, that's cool.
Not that it came off on me.
My wife's dad was also a golf pro, and it definitely did not pass down to her. What's your favourite business or non-business book that you've read?
I like the Russell Coates one. Actually, I enjoyed that recently. I just finished that.
Cool.
Old friend.
Love it. Who is your business or life hero?
Business or life hero? Probably my Uncle Keith, who recently passed away. He inspired me to get into building when I was really young. And then later on, guy Ron McRae, who was my project manager on my job that I finished my apprenticeship on.
Cool. Awesome. Wine or whiskey?
Wine.
What's your favourite hobby?
Sailing.
Makita, DeWalt or Milwaukee?
Has to be shit, almost said it. Has to be Makita, or my son would kill me. He's named his cat Makita.
Oh wow, he's a big fan. Then
Yeah.
you should get some sponsorship out of Makita. So yeah, Makita, if you hear this, reach out to Troy. Glass half empty or half full?
Half full for sure. Yeah.
For sure. Do you think more about the past or do you think more about the future?
Well, the future now, but well, the past when I was sort of figuring out what I was going to do, how we learn from things, that's for sure. But now it's all about the future and what I'm going to do. Me and my wife, we'll leave it to Troy, and we'll just touch base every now and then.
Sail into the sunset.
That's exactly what we're doing. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's it, Ross. Did you have fun?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for enjoying it. And like I say, I hope everyone enjoyed it. And then, get in touch if we need any help with the concrete. And we're all, like I say, I'm myself and lots of other people will help out and hopefully build more concrete. Never have enough concrete.
Love it. I love it. And I know there's going to be a lot of builders is probably screaming at their phone or whatever, going, there's a lot more different questions we should have asked today and a lot more information. So since you'll be retiring soon, we'd love to have you in the future. If you're back from Europe or back from your sailing, we'll have you on again in a few months' time if you're open to that. So, thanks for coming on.
All right, thank you.